In this video, I'm going to show you how to mix down the edit into an MP3 or a Wav file. And this will wrap up this series on Traction 5. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let's get right into this. So you probably want to put some sort of a limiter on the bus as you go to mix down. I'm using Tone Booster's Barricade, but there's many available on the market. What you actually do with this bus is really going to depend on how you actually use the song in the end. But you will want to set the ceiling somewhere between maybe -3 dB. I used to set this to 0.3 dB, but in more modern mixing, you set this down lower quite a bit. -3 dB gives you a little headroom when you're going into an MP3 file. And the ceiling is the maximum of full scale that you allow the actual output to go. But you do want to have something in here on the output. You could use Isotope Ozone, or you could use Wav's L2. In this particular case, I'm using Tone Booster's Barricade. Many choices on the market for your final limiting. You could also put a bus compressor in here, maybe some EQ if you'd like. If you're going out to additional mastering, you don't necessarily need anything on here. But normally if you're going to post this online, you want to put some kind of limiter on at this stage. So with the limiter on, I'll play back a little bit and you can see how the limiter is working. So I don't want the limiter working very hard, but it is capturing peaks, allows you to bring the level up a little bit. So without getting into a big class on how that works, let's just go into the mechanics of how you actually export the song. Now, if you want to control the ending very carefully, you want to put the loop marker right where you want the song to end. So if you set the cursor here and hit O, that sets the output marker. You don't have to do this, but if you really want to control that to make sure you've got a little extra space at the end, then set the output marker there, go to the home or the beginning of the song, you've got some extra bars, and you want the song to come in a little bit ahead of this, a little space ahead of just coming in right on the beat. You can set the input marker either by dragging this flag or putting the cursor where you want it, hitting I. So with that set up that way, we're ready to do the actual export. Now there's a menu item for export right down here in the menu section. So you select export and then render to file. So we'll select render to file. That gives us this dialog box. Now let's start by rendering to a Wav file. You just select Wav right here. Now in the top line of the render, you can select the file name. You could put in the song name if you'd like here. It will automatically go into the project folder, which we'll find it in there later after it's done, or you could export it to your desktop or some other location. You can choose that here. You choose the file format, or choose a Wav file, stereo, sample rate. This I'm leaving at the standard for CDs. If you're going out for additional mastering, you would leave this at the full resolution of the project. But if you're going to a CD, you'd leave this at 16-bit. You can also remove silence at the start or the end. I wouldn't probably do that. You can enable dithering. I'm not going to get into what dithering's all about, but usually when you're converting the sample rate between 24 bits and 16 bits, you would leave dithering on. Only render the marked region. This allows us to make the song the exact length between the input and the output markers like I just showed you. So if you're doing your final rendering, I usually do use this and then use the in and out markers to show exactly what I want. And then render each track to a separate file. If you're mixing out stems to go into another digital audio workstation, you'd use it for that. You can also render at 1x speed. If you, for some reason, felt like that gave you better quality, you can turn that on. Now, normalizing will actually fill up the file bit depth with the signal peak to peak. Rarely will you use this in a normal music production situation because that ultimately will not sound good once you move to MP3 if you're doing a secondary conversion process. There are situations where you might want to turn this on. Some people do use this for dialogue or voice. I would normally set the way I want it to fill up the bit depth using my limiter plugin rather than normalize here. You can also adjust the level based on an RMS level. This is more typical of the way things are working right now. Again, I wouldn't probably do it that way, but it is available right there. Now, once you've got everything dialed in, all you do is click render, and it says render complete because it actually pre-rendered it. So then once that's complete, if you click back over in the project page, you can see this is my audio editing project, and then all of the files associated with this project are here. If I go down to the end where you see exported audio MIDI, then here is the actual file. This is the rendered file. So we can get it from here and use it. We can click right here to play it. Or if you want to just find it right in your file system, you can go right in here, right click, and then show the folder containing this project. Here's the project itself. Click on exported, and then here's the file. All right, so with that done, let's do the same thing but create an MP3 file. Go back to the menu, click on export, render to a file. That gives us this dialog. Now we can select MP3 file from this list. The options change just a little bit. You can choose the quality, and you can also add ID3 information if you'd like. So you click ID3, click edit here. You can fill in all the ID3 like the artist, the title, album year, etc. if you want. We're not going to do that at this point. We also have the option to render only the marked region, which we will do, and then you can choose your MP3 quality. So this is the variable bit rate, best quality. I think by default it comes up to quality 4 normal for variable bit rate. If you want to select a constant bit rate with a pretty good quality, then you'd come down here and choose 256 or 320. So we're going to do a 320 constant bit rate for this. I'm not going to normalize it or adjust based on the RMS level. And then the option works just the same way. Click render. Since it was doing the render while we were thinking about the options, it's already done. Back over on the project page. Now down here on our export to, you can see we've got our MP3 version of that file. If I right click on my project, show the containing folder again and look at exported, then you'll see here's the MP3 version of that file, and I could play it. So that takes us end to end with Traction. We've gone all the way from installing the program, recording, editing, adding virtual instruments using Guitar Amp Sims. Now we've exported a file, and there's still a lot more that you can learn and explore about Traction. This is Bill Edstrom. Have fun, and I'll see you in another video very soon.